I think it's important as we produce and compose to always be thinking in complete musical statements. Even if it's a short piece of music, if it has a beginning, some kind of development, and a clear ending, you're creating a complete piece of music. And I think it's really important to think in those terms all the time. And we're going to focus on making short pieces. We're all going to conform to 40 measure songs. It's going to be divided up into 5 8-measure segments. I'm going to outline the form here, and we'll be using this throughout much of the course, though we will loosen up on it toward the end. So we're always going to start with an introduction. And the thing I want you thinking about your intro is how are you transitioning your listener from their natural sonic environment into yours. And so we're going to be drawing this kind of line in blue here that is, consider it an emotional spark line. Right? So it's going to kind of represent the listener's emotion throughout the entire piece. And so our introduction is going to start kind of small and build up. It'd be good to bring in high frequency percussion there. It might be nice to use maybe a texture synthesizer or a sequenced element or subtle synthesizers. We want to start kind of small, and we don't want to have a lot of big bass in there yet. And then we're going to move into more of our groove section of our piece of music. So it'll be bigger than the introduction. We'll have gotten somewhere, but it's not going to be the top yet, right? We want to leave some place to go, and that's going to be pretty static for the course of that section, right? It'll be pretty static. It's not going to change much. This is when you're going to want to introduce your kick drum, your bass line, maybe even your chords a little bit. But stay subtle and don't be too dramatic at that point. Next, we want to really break down the energy. We want big contrast. So as much as possible, you're going to immediately just bring down the energy, probably till just as low as you had in the very introduction, and then just stay at that level for the extent of the section. Now, one thing that we really want to have, and I think is important in a lot of contemporary electronic music, is a big emotional dynamic range. So points where you go from really quiet to really loud all at once. You have that big drama. And so I think it's nice to have our climactic section, kind of the biggest section of our whole music, right after the breakdown. And again, this does get played with and is different in different songs, but this is a nice format to start with. And we'll just keep that nice and high. And I'm going to call that kind of my climax section. Now this should have pretty much everything in. Should have pretty much everything in your song. So you'll have your groove that you brought back, probably get faster hi-hats, more energy. You're going to want to have your bass line in there, your chords, your lead. So as many layers as you're going to have in the entire song, they should be all in there right now. Should be the brightest section and be the loudest. And then for our outro, we want to kind of step down our energy and remove elements one by one. So we might get rid of the bass might drop out there. Maybe my hats will drop out, and then maybe my kick drum drops out. We just keep removing elements until we end up with nothing. And so this is the general structure that I'd like to focus on for this course. And there's a lot of reasons why, right? It's going to give us a chance to explore all these great synthesizer categories over the course of the building this up. And it also gives us a chance to really think about the audience and that they want to hear all these different sections and this big dynamic range as they're listening to their songs. Now, the next thing I want you to consider after you have the basic sections in, and we'll kind of get to this later in the course in depth, is how are we transitioning? Are there any big moments that we can do some really important things? And so I'd like to kind of have you focus really carefully on those kind of measures right before section changes. Right? Those are moments to do something really special. And I'd love for you to take that moment to do something really special, and this one also. And so there's like big dramatic moments. Often you can just drop the whole groove out for that moment, or you can do some kind of crazy vocal tweak, you just something interesting that grabs the attention and makes the audience like ready, okay, something important's about to happen. And those are our big moments. Now we also want to integrate these kind of linear cues, right? These kind of sounds that are moving in a single direction, often in a straight line, that can identify something's about to happen. There's a couple things we can do with that. The first one I'd like to think of is coming out of our breakdown, we'd like to have something that's just building up to identify that the climax is coming. And I would suggest doing that again, coming right up to your outro. We'll talk how to make those kind of sounds, but it could be kind of a rising synthesizer, or it could be some kind of noise sweep. Now, I find it's actually really hard to break down energy. Often it's easy to make things more and more exciting, but to kind of bring the energy down, but also then connect the sections can be really tough. But I'll give you a hint, and this is one I really like and I hear all the time, and that is at the end of one of the bigger sections to bring in reverbs and delays. So I might think of kind of adding in reverbs and delays right here so that when the section changes, they naturally kind of fade away and it kind of connects the section automatically. And we could do the same thing leading up to our outro. We kind of brought in those reverbs and delays and they kind of fade away naturally there. And so this is kind of how I would like us to think about our production as we continue on. And I just want to kind of recap a little bit on the things that might be in each section and the bar numbers we would look at, right? So this would be measure number 1. This is going to be measure number 9. And between those in our intro, I think, stay really sparse, really in the mid-range of the frequency spectrum, and often mostly percussive. You can build up toward the end of that, and then you come to your groove. In the groove section, I think your drums are gonna come in, more percussion, but not really full, maybe kind of, halfway there with the groove. And then we're gonna be at measure 17 when things are gonna break way down. Now in this section, you really wanna think about vibe and space. So those textural synthesizers work great. Also just playing with reverbs and delays to create a really good sense of space. And then we have some linear motion to kind of build us out of that. And you could be introducing a bit of percussion as this rises up too. At measure 25, you're looking at your climax. This is going to be your big, bold statement. This is a chance to really show off as a producer, put it all in there, and just see what you can come up with, right? Be dramatic, be bold, be intense, and that should be the biggest emotional portion of the song. Again, we have this build up, and this is kind of a funny one, to build up out of the climax, but it does provide kind of a false build. You kind of expect maybe even something bigger there, and you start breaking down, start playing with expectations a little bit. This will be measure 33, and then we're going to end on measure 41 after you've removed your elements one by one toward the end. So we're going to be sticking to this form throughout most of the class. I think it's a great way to kind of structure yourself, and I think it'd be a good idea to take this kind of diagram and start writing in ideas and add it to your process folio so it's a document of what you've created here in the class.